Welcome back to Radio Faces at our HCC Main Street studio. I'm John McClain from the Chronicle, Chron.com and Sports Radio 610. Indy Kalu from Sports Radio 610, 12-year veteran. This is where we go around the league. And I know Indy called the Giants the scariest team, and you were right.
You know what? I was right, and they're proving me right, but I can't take credit. All the credit, obviously, are with those players and the coaching staff in New York. Larry Izzo, former Rice guy, he's over the special teams. They've been playing pretty well. When you look at this Giants team, they're getting hot at the right time.
What about Eli Manning and some of those
he has a little bit to do,
and some of the receivers
and the running backs? But it's mainly the special teams coach from Rice University,
okay.
Larry
We'll
Izzo.
remember that when they go to the Super Bowl.
But when you look at this team, they're getting hot at the right time, and they're playing fundamental football. They're hitting you in between the tackles, as we talked about with Arian Foster with their running backs. Early in the season, during the regular season, everybody was asking, where are these running backs? Where are these running backs? They finally showed up. Ahmad Bradshaw, Brandon Jacobs. They're giving you that 1-2 punch you expect from two physical running backs, and Eli Manning is now an elite quarterback. Can't spell elite without Eli. I just made that up. I kind of like that.
That's pretty good. I may steal that.
Yeah, go ahead. And he's playing like an elite quarterback. And right now, I don't think anybody wants to see the New York Giants.
I'm going to tweet that as soon as the show's over. Now, before the season, everybody figured that John Harbaugh and the Colts would be in the playoffs. In the Ravens,
right.
Who in the world would have thought Jim Harbaugh would have made the playoffs, and the two of them could possibly go to the Super Bowl? Can you imagine if they're in the Super Bowl? We might get to hear about them instead of Tebow all week.
Exactly, and I think this is a great story. Even if they don't make it to the Super Bowl, to have two brothers coaching in conference championship games, I mean, that's amazing. And I understand their dad was a coach, so I'm sure they were growing up around it. Then obviously the younger brother played in the NFL. So these two guys, their story is awesome. It needs to be told. We need to hear more about it because all we've heard about is Tim Tebow. But to have two, there's only 32 head coaching positions, which you obviously know. First of all, it's amazing to have two brothers filling those spots, but to have the success that they're having, I almost want it to happen. I almost want those teams to go to the Super Bowl so we could hear more about it.
And it would be a rematch, that game in San Francisco, that the Ravens went in and sacked Alex Smith 9 times and won that game. It would give Jim Harbaugh, the coach of the year, a chance to get a little bit of revenge. Now, you want to talk about the Raiders and firing Hugh Jackson. You don't like it?
Oh, I was surprised by it. When you look at Hugh Jackson, he was 8-8 in his first year with everything that went on in the Raider organization. Al Davis, a longtime owner, passing away. The trade to bring in Carson Palmer, who I didn't feel had a chance to get comfortable. He needs another offseason. He needs to spend another year learning this offense, getting into this offensive system before you could say whether or not this was a good trade. Then to have him fired after 1 year, 8-8, I was a little bit surprised. But the only reason I wasn't surprised was because it was the new GM. You know, there's some rumors going on that Mike Davis wanted him gone, and he did it through the GM. But anytime you have a new GM, they want to put their thumbprint on the team. They want to say, hey, I'm bringing in my guy, my players, my system, so y'all are going to have to win with that system, and maybe Hugh Jackson just didn't fit it.
Reggie McKenzie did a great job working under Ted Thompson at Green Bay and Ron Wolf before him, and everybody thought he was the next hot GM property. I kind of thought he would wait for one of those other jobs rather than going to the Raiders because they're so dysfunctional historically, and that'd be about the last place I'd want to go. And everybody thinks he wants to hire Winston Moss. Winston Moss has been ready, the Packers have said, for the last couple of years, but I tell you, weird, Kennard McGuire is the agent for Hugh Jackson and Reggie McKenzie. And he gets McKenzie in there, and then he fires his other client. Jackson's going to be an offensive coordinator. The most recent place he interviewed was St. Louis. Now, speaking of St. Louis, before the season, New Orleans offered an extension to defensive coordinator Greg Williams, and he said no. And the handwriting was on the wall at that point. If he said no for a perennial Super Bowl contender, he probably was going to know Jeff Fisher is going to get a job and he's going to go back to work for him, which is exactly what's happened. Were you surprised when you heard Greg left the Saints to start over with Fisher?
Absolutely not. It's been much chronicled. You do a great job letting everybody know that these are friends. You know, don't forget, coaches are humans. When you look at their families growing up together, their families know each other. I'm not even surprised, and I don't think it's an issue if Greg Williams talks to his buddy on the phone during the season and Jeff Fisher says, you know what, I think I'm going to come back to coaching in 2012. Why not? Why not say no, and why not jump ship at the end of the contract? He fulfilled his contract. I don't have any problem with it. And how awesome is it to be able to go to work every day with one of your best friends? Kind of like what we do on this show.
Of course, except we don't get to do it every day.
Right.
You know what's interesting, Andy, is when Greg Williams went from Washington 1 year at Jacksonville, and he was a free agent. Titans were going to hire him, and he wanted to bring his oldest son, who was going to get into coaching. Bud Adams wouldn't let him do it. Fisher was going to do it, and Bud wouldn't do it. So New Orleans said, sure. Goes to New Orleans, wins the Super Bowl. Now Jeff Fisher gets to bring in him and his son. I think it's going to be a great to have those two guys together.
You've covered football for a long time. Let me get your opinion on this. I don't know what side to be on when you talk about bringing in family members or very close friends to be directly under you. I just said Greg Williams, Jeff Fisher make a good team, so it sounds kind of hypocritical. But bringing in your son, that's a little uneasy, because if he's not up to par, are you going to try to defend him? Are you going to try to cover up what he's doing wrong? Or are you going to put him out there like you would somebody you're not intimately related to?
Well, his son Blake, who went to Princeton, cost Greg a fortune. He decided he wanted to be a coach. He has quality control over there, quality control, offense, then defense. And, of course, if they're never going to fire your son.
Right.
So that's something. If he was not good, you have to overcome it. But, of course, Greg thinks that his son's great. Eventually, he's going to be a defensive coordinator. I talked to people in Philadelphia this week. They don't think Vince Young is going to be back there as a backup quarterback. Doesn't surprise me. Vince didn't play very well. And where do we see Vince going to end up?
It's tough. I mean, you thought that he was going to be able to redeem himself when he goes to Philadelphia. We almost knew he was going to get a shot to get on the field because of the way Michael Vick plays. And when he did get his opportunity, he didn't amaze anybody. At some points, he didn't even look like he was ready. But you have to think somebody's going to give him a chance. He needs to go on a PR tour, get in front of as many cameras as he can, and let everybody know, you know what, I want to be a football player. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll move to whatever city gives me that chance to learn their system. He needs to do a better job with his PR and not sit up there and say, I should be a starter, because he hasn't proven it.
That would be a very good idea if he did do that. That guy doesn't need PR, Robert Griffin III. Now, as you know, we got a long evaluation process to go. Everything he did at Baylor, the NFL scouts say, yeah, that's important, but really they're going to look from here on. But I've talked to people that think that Washington and Miami, if Griffin's evaluations to the draft are as good as they think they're going to be, and he's the second best quarterback to Andrew Luck, both will try to trade up to get it. That Washington needs him because Mike Shanahan has promised a quarterback. They don't have a quarterback. If he has to have Rex Grossman again or John Beck, he might have one more year. And then Miami, they need star power. They need a name. They want to sell tickets. So whichever one of them has the most money, the most to offer, and I don't know what it'll be, they're going to try to start with St. Louis, then Minnesota, and see if they can trade up for RG3. And, of course, I think that would be great.